So welcome back to episode 6. I'm John from Simply Web. We are now up to the footer for converting our HTML template into a fully working WordPress theme. Let's switch over to my monitor here. You can see, if you remember where we last left off, we had just finished getting all this navigation header working, and that's all now dynamic. So now we're going to work on the footer. Now there are different ways to do this. The WordPress way is using widgetized areas. Now in the function, let me just close all and let me open my functions.php. We have defined some widget areas. Now in this instance, I'm actually not going to be using widget areas. We're going to, because I would not traditionally do that if I was working in an agency. I would actually create a theme custom options page and I would use ACF fields. It saves having to, otherwise I'd have to create all these custom widget blocks, basically, these so we can set up our widgets. You know, there's already a menu widget, but it's not going to come out in style and look like this. And same as the gallery. Then we've got this newsletter widget, and then we've got this address widget. So yes, could do it in WordPress and create all these different custom widgets, but it's just easier and traditional for me to do this with ACF, so that's how I'm going to do it today. So let's just close tabs to the right. If we go into, we're using ACF. So if we go into ACF options page and scroll down to the bottom, somewhere here we go. So we've got this functionality here. All right. So let's just copy that, go over to our ink folder, add a new ACF.php. So any custom ACF functions can go in here, and we'll drop that in. Now what I like to do, if you go to my setup, I like to put this in the top of all of my custom PHP. I'm going to drop that in the nav walker there because I know it wasn't in there. It's just a security, so it just means somebody can't go to this file directly. They can't go to WP content, theme, ink, ACF.php and that like. So right, that's all that does. So, and it's a WordPress function. So it's unique to WordPress. Right. So if we go into our back end now and refresh, you can see we've now got this theme settings. If we hover, we've got theme settings, header, footer, which is what we've got here. So at the moment, we don't need theme header. So I've got to comment that out. So that's now gone. And we go footer. So now we've got no fields in here, so we've got no functionality. So in here is where I'm going to copy. We're in all these footer functions. So we're going to start with our contact info. So if we go to ACF field groups, add new field group, and we're going to go theme footer. I'm going to add a tab because I like working in tabs, and we're going to call this contact widget, and we'll want this left aligned. I can't type. Right, so that's just a tab. That's just purely is style, and we're going to go for this. We want it in the options page, and we want it in the footer settings. Now, in here we want address. In here I want a text area, and I'll show you why. And in presentation, I want to make it only 3 rows, and I want to add a breakpoint. It's easy. And then we're going to add another field here, which is phone number. We'll leave that as a text field. Phone. And then the next one is email. This one will make an email field, so it validates it as an email. And then we've got all these social icons. Twitter, which is now X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So we're going to go in and add, that's going to be our repeater. Socials. And in that repeater, we're going to have a select field. And this will be type. And in here, we're going to have X. Oops. Is that just a mark on my screen? X. And then we want Facebook. And we want Instagram. And give that a capital, capitalize it. So the way ACF works is this is the value, this is the label. So when they're choosing, this is what they'll see. And then the next one is LinkedIn. Obviously you can add in any socials you want. And we're going to return both. And also in here we need the URL. So we want a URL. Just put link. I'll call that URL. We just have it as tables, so they can be tables side by side. And what else do we need in this one? That's it. So if we go and save those changes now, and we go into our footer settings, you can see we've got the address field. So let's just go, and I'll show you why I added it. Okay, and then phone number. And email. And then we can go and add our X. Facebook. Instagram. And lastly, LinkedIn. Obviously, if this was a real site, you'd be doing the proper actual URL socials. All right, so we've got that in there. So obviously we haven't done anything in our front end yet. So let's go to our footer. Find out our, so here's our address. So here's all our address. So that's this widget here. So above that widget, let's go address equals get field, and we called it address. And it's an option page because we're calling it from an option page. So this is a ACF function. So address is what we called the name of the field, and option is the value. It's an option page. So you can put that as a post ID if it was for a post ID. Oops. Let's duplicate that down. So the next one is phone. Copy that. Copy that. Now the other thing I like to do is do this. So these are, because these are strings, is the output. We're returning, if it does exist, we've got to return an empty string, so then we don't get errors. So email. And lastly is our socials. Now socials is a repeater, so that doesn't return a string, that returns an array. So let's give it an empty array. So let's go PHP if address does not equal empty string, because we're setting it up to say, hey, if there's nothing there, return an empty string. Output it. So basically, if it doesn't have a value, we're not going to output it. So if it's empty, don't output it. And then in here, we just echo that. Now I wanted to show you why I do it with the breakpoints in there. So if we now go and refresh this, you can see it's added the breakpoints. If I go back in and just do that, which is what it was, and refresh, it puts it out how we want. So that's why I like to add the breakpoints. Right. The next one is the phone. So I want to copy that if address is empty. I'm going to put that in here. I want to say if phone is empty. Oh, sorry, if not empty, not if is empty. Then output it. Now, this is not linking, so we could link this. Oops. So that will output it, but it's not a link, so people can't click to call. If you look at my helpers, read the README of the theme, I have this phone URL helper function, which converts a phone number into it outputs as a link. So if we do that, if we go alright, so the function is phone URL, and we pass the phone. It's now a link. You can see the styling's not right. So I wonder if I can go normally, because this is Bootstrap, we might be able to go class equals text white. So that worked. Okay, so now we've got it as a link. So now people can click in that, and you can see on the hover, if you can see in the bottom left corner there, it's output it. Now the address is American, so we can then go plus 01. Oops, num locks off again. So I've just put in that, what have I done? Oops. Well, my numlock keeps turning off like that. So we're doing the app on the phone, but we're telling it it's American now, so we're changing it to 01. So it's now plus 01 instead of plus 61, which was the American. All right, and so let's do the same. Let's get the email. So we'll go if phone, if email does not equal, let's close that, and output the email, and let's do the same as before. Let's wrap that in the anchor tag and put our text white class back in there, which is a Bootstrap class. and we don't have to, email's email, so all we have to do with that is go mail to email, and then close that anchor tag. So that's now dynamic, and now we've got all our socials. So this time it's not empty. We're going to use a helper function that we've got called isR. And let me show you what that is once I finish typing it out. Okay, so isR in our helpers. isR. Right, just checks to see if it's a valid array and not empty. So isArray confirms it's is a PHP function that validates that it is an array. However, my helper function also checks that there's actual values in there. Once again, read the README. So we've got if socials. Now, if we look, we've got pretty much all the same. So we want to go for each, we want to loop through each socials as social, close that off, and then after the first one, go close off our loop, so we're no longer in the loop. We don't need these anymore. Actually, I'll just close them off. So PHP icons equals, and then we go X equals, now I'm not sure, let's just do fab FA dash X dash X. Facebook is FA dash Facebook F. I'll explain this in a second. Give me one. Whoops. And then we've got Instagram. And then we've got LinkedIn. So Instagram is just FA dash Instagram. And LinkedIn is FA dash LinkedIn dash in. Alright, so what am I doing? So these values are what we've given to our field values. So these values, so if we go in here into our type, X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, that corresponds to that, and that corresponds to the icon we want. So what we want to do is we want to output the URL because we're within the loop here. So we go equals ifne, another helper function, and we want social, and we want the URL. So URL. And now, what is this if not empty ifne? That's an if not function, if not empty. Once again, that's over in the helpers. So it looks at it looks at the array, gets the index, and returns a default, which default by blank is empty. Right. Now the other thing we want, so we want to go in here we want to go equals icons. Actually, so we'll do this. What we'll do is we'll go type equals, if not empty, social and type. That's what we called it over here, type. And then copy it. We're just going to copy this. I want to show you what we're going to do. And now over here, we're going to go icons, and we're going to reference the type. So the type is returning the value. The value is this left, is this left thing. So this type will return X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So what we're doing is then we're going to go look in the icons, get the type, and we're going to return the value. Right? So if we refresh that now, so the X icon doesn't appear because Font Awesome icon might not have an X icon. So it also depends on the Font Awesome version running. So if we go back to our functions.php, so we are using Font Awesome 5. I don't know what version this is. So we'll go Font Awesome 5 X icon. So yeah, so if we look, it should be, so it's FA-solid. So if we go back to our footer, so we're doing FA- so we'll go fab, which is Font Awesome brand, and we'll go Font Awesome solid. So now in our icon, we can just get rid of that, and hopefully we should get an X in there, which we still didn't. Oh, FA-solid. No, still didn't work. Maybe it's going to have to be a bootstrap icon. Or we're going to have to change the Font Awesome version. Let's try that. I was trying that because I knew we were including the bootstrap icons, if you remember from the functions, but we're obviously running older versions here. So how are we going to do this? What version? So if we go to our Font Awesome icon, so let's go Font Awesome CDN. So if we copy that and in our functions change over to that version, and then in here change over to that, now got all our icons. So basically I just upgraded the version of Font Awesome icon that we were using, so now X works. Cool. So now we can get rid of our commented out code. We just loop it through, we're getting all our loops. Sweet, that takes care of that one. Now, that's all good and well, but what if we don't have any of these values, we're still going to have this widget here that says address, and it's just going to be empty. So what I want to do is, this is our function here. So I'm going to do a OR statement. So if address, does not equal done, or phone does not equal done, or, so two pipes is or email does not equal or is array socials. So basically what we're doing, if I just close this off, so what we're doing is we're going to say, hey, if address has value, or phone has value, or email has value, or socials is a valid array, output. Otherwise, it won't do anything. And you'll also notice that I put this with a colon and then the word end if, rather than using the curly braces like we did up here. That's because when I'm doing a lot of HTML and code within a if statement, I like to use the end if, and then especially if there's children ifs, which there's child if statements in here, it just helps separate it. The other thing I like to do is just break it up so they're not all together like that. So that just keeps it nice and neat. But now if we went and entered all of these, then that whole widget area wouldn't appear. All right, that's why I did that. So then, otherwise we'd end up with this address. Now the other thing we could do is, if we wanted to, was where it says address, we could just do this. So the code is still it's still hard coded, but it becomes translatable. So I like to do that. And if you're using a translation in your theme, you can do whatever you translate is like that. All right. Okay. All right. Next one is our quick links. So now let's go in and let's close this field. Close field. So we've got our contact widget. Let's do another tab. Quick links. Left align, don't have to because it's not, we haven't closed it off. But if you, why I do that now is if I update that, so you can now see how that works. It just makes it neater. So now in our quick links, they're just links. See, they're just links. So we'll just go. In fact, what we could do, you know how I added that, made that translatable, that address? Let's just add another field. Let's go heading. And go address, actually what are we calling this? Contact heading. And we'll give that default value. And we'll just drag that up to the top of the contact widget. So then if we go into heading equals get field address So now, instead of this being translatable, we're actually making it customizable. Here we go. Where are we? Here. And we're setting the default to be addressed both here and in the field value itself. So if we save refresh, nothing's just going to change. But if I go into the theme settings, update, and change that to contact, and refresh. Be right. Something's not right because we've got this bad here. Oh, there we go. Now it must have just been caching. So now we can change it to whatever we want. There we go. All right. So in the quick links, let's do the same thing there. Let's add a text area for the heading. And you'll just see that I'm prefixing these ones, because if I just had heading and heading, it's got a conflict. So by prefixing it with quick heading, it should be fine. And this value is going to be quick link. Save changes. Now start new PHP. Heading equals get field option and set that as the default. And then we change it to quick links, and then we can just echo back out each heading. So that's done. Right, now we've got to add the menu options. So in here, we're going to go add a menu. So we're going to go repeater. We want it to be, we're going to call it a menu. And have we got another menu in there? I'm going to call it quick menu. And we're going to go a link, item, save. And then in here, so if we look, we've got about us, contact us. So we go select link, hash, about us, contact us. Next one is privacy policy. Now the link, if there were pages, I'll be able to pick it from there, but we haven't got there yet. So we're just putting in content at the moment, not creating pages. We're just getting the dynamic working, and then we'll worry about it afterwards as we work on the pages. There we go. And we go update. So we called that quick menu. Menu, quick menu, and we're going to return an empty array. And we're going to go if is a menu Remembering is a helper function. And we're going to do that. PHP end if. Cool. Now, we want to loop through PHP for each menu as item. Done. Close that one off. These are all the same, so we can get rid of those. And we want, so if we var dump item to see what that returns in its raw format on the front end, you can see we've got this, when we var dump, we've got item, title, and URL. Okay, so let's change that to menu item, and then we can go PHP item equals, it's not empty, menu item, done, item. So what we've done is we're now in this. Okay, so now we can go if not empty item, and we want URL. Copy that. And that will be if not empty item title. And then we've got this target. If not empty item equals target. So that way, if when we add it in here, if we add it, we can tell it to open in a new tab, and that's what that does. All right, so now if we refresh, we won't see any changes because that's exactly what we put in there. But if we go in and change this to careers, for example, and refresh, now you can see that's careers because that's now dynamic. Cool, let's do the gallery one now. So let's go back into here, let's add a new field. We want to add tabs, we want to go gallery, and in here we're going to do really simple. ACF has the gallery field. We want to call that footer gallery. Do we need a heading? We probably want a heading. Default will be gallery, I'm assuming. Gallery, yep. Default, gallery. So here we go. So PHP heading equals get field, and we want to get that gallery heading field from our option, and we want to return gallery if it happens to be empty. Make sure that's a string. Alright, and then we want to go gallery equals get field, and we want to return that as an empty array, and that was footer gallery. Just because gallery is too generic, I didn't want to call it in this option. So now we want to make sure if is array gallery, closing div, and if. Right, and you can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images, all with the same classes. So we go PHP, we want to loop through them now for each. Gallery as image. Now this will be an image array. We're returning an array. Okay. Just commenting out for now. Now if we go and refresh, you'll see that'll disappear. See, it's disappeared because we're wrapping it as if is array, and we haven't actually going and added any images yet. So let's have a look. We want to upload some images. So let's have a look. Look, I'm just on the side here. I want to get some images. And I want to get these portfolio images. So we want portfolio 1 to 6. There we go, select and update. Now when we refresh, it comes in. So now if we go and vardump image, you can image array, sorry. You can see we're getting all these different images. So I have a function, so I'm going to call this image, and I have a helper function called ACF image. Alright, and we want to pass the image ID through it. Now, this helper function takes a size that we want to return, and by default it returns the full size image. Now these full size images, if we go to our library, check, these are 500 by 400, 500 by 400, but they won't be outputting in there. So if we refresh now, see they're only outputting 103 by 82. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to our functions file. In our functions file, we have this custom function called image sizes. So we want it to be 103 by 82. So we're going to crop it 103. I think the number lock's come off again. What is my number lock here? (103 by 82), and we want it cropped. It's going to be cropped. So this is my naming convention. You could call this whatever you want here, but I always use the, because then I know when I'm looking at it. So if I go and paste that in here now, so the size we want it to be is that size. So if I'm ever looking at this file, I know the image size is cropped and it's 103 wide by 82 high. This is why I do my naming like this, and we want it cropped so it'll be true. Now the other issue we've got is we need to do a regenerate these media, because this image size didn't exist. So you can do this via CLI, which I generally do, but I'll also show you how we can do it via a function. So if we go add a new plugin called regenerate, not by function, sorry, by plugin. There's one called WP Media Regenerate thumbnails by Alex Mills. You can see 1 million active users, and I'm pretty sure that this man passed away. So there's quite a few. Short Pixels is quite popular. This is the one I generally use, but it hasn't been updated for a couple of years, so let's just force it. So delete and really force. So this will be using the CLI, which is what I would normally do. So if I go over to, so now we've got, so it should be under Tools, Force Regenerate. So we can go, you can see mine is in there, we can go Regenerate, and it gives you an output. It shows you what it's all done. So now when we go over to our page and refresh, there's our images, and we're not, and by telling it that size, if we inspect that now, you can see the image is only that size. So we're not loading massive images and then scaling them down to a icon size. So it just helps, it optimizes our HTML code by only delivering the image size that we actually need. And you can see there's no lightbox functionality in this. We're just outputting some images. So that could be social icons, that we'll work with. Now in the newsletter one, so we're going to have to do some custom functionality in that. So let's add a tab for our newsletter. And we're going to go heading. And prefix this with newsletter. And default value is newsletter. Newsletter. We're going to add in a text area field. Now I like to use a text area field. Description. And the reason being, I will only show that as 2 rows, but that way you can add breakpoints, so you can, it sort of automatically adds a new line if you decide you need it, so in case you want to avoid wrapping and things like that. And then we're going to need a form. So what are we going to use for our form here? Well, I think for this example, for this template, I think I'll add another plugin, and I think we'll just use, normally I would use Gravity Forms, but I think for this we'll just use Contact Form 7 for this. Contact Form 7, just because it's easy. I would not normally use Contact Form 7 in, I've got a license for Gravity Forms, so I would use a Gravity Forms, but it is a premium plugin, so for this templating example, I'm going to use Contact Form 7. So let's go into Contact Forms. Let's add a new contact form, and we're going to call this newsletter. So what we want to do is in our footer, let's get rid of those gallery images now that are placeholders. So we've got, this is our actual form. All right. So we've got an input field, button field, and we've got a closing div. All right. So we want to input an email field. And the class for those will be the class from our input holder, and minimum will be, this is a required field, minimum will be, no we don't, do we need a minimum? We've got a height, no, so we don't need a minimum. And then we're going to put a placeholder of your email and use this as a placeholder. Insert. So we've basically got rid of that. I don't know how this style of height is going to work. We'll have to worry about that. Okay. Then we've got our submit form. Submit is a button. So our class is that. And our label is our icon. So now we can get rid of that button. Yep. And we can save. Now we've got two options here. We can go and generate a custom function to get our contact forms, or we could just make it that it outputs the shortcode. Do we want a custom function? And that's what I'm going to try to think about for a second. Okay, so contact form 7, I just did a double check. It does output as a custom post type. So Gravity Forms doesn't. So that's why I was wanting to check. So we're going to go post object. Right. We're going to call this form. And we're going to filter by post types of contact form. And only published. And we're just going to return the post ID. The reason being is because I'm going to work out how we're going to do that. All right. That might be different. So let's return the post object for now. We'll do this. Return the post object. We don't want to select multiple. Okay, save changes. All right, so let's go and edit our theme options. So we'll refresh this. Oops. Don't know what command shift. So I used to use a Mac. All right, we'll just refresh this. Newsletter. I thought I put that in there as a head. Oh, that's right, because I had to undo it when I was just playing. All right, so cool. Newsletter and description, presentation to @ cool. All right, so sure. Here's our description, and our form will be newsletter. Cool. All right. So in our code, sublime heading, form, newsletter heading. We want the description. And newsletter form will be the form. Alright, so let's echo this. VARD up, I mean, my form. Refresh. So there's our post type. Alright, so just have a look. Contact. No, I don't want the data. so it is a shortcut. Let's just see if I can do, let's see if I can go, just for test, echo, do shortcode. Alright, so that will output, if I refresh now, server var dump, we see the email. Oh, we've got, what have that? Does it output the no. Okay, alright, anyway, alright, let's see what happens if we change the ID. So I'm trying to work out how to get this, I've been quiet, haven't I? I'm trying to work out how to get this to work. So if I change this to form post ID, so let's change this, let's do this, let's go comment that out. Do my shortcode. What's going on? Okay, so refresh. Var dump form. So we do want, so if we go form dash ID, yep. So if I do that is my form ID in contact form 7. it's just a PHP echo. It does work. Cool. So we are getting the right form if I just do the form ID. What I wanted to do was the post ID, because if you look at the form, it gives it this ID, whereas the post ID is 49. So I wanted to know if I could go ID equals 49. If that makes sense. So now we know we can because we're outputting it on the front end. Cool. All right. So we've got quick links, we've got gallery. Now we've got the bottom menu. All right. So we've got the copyright and bottom bar footer. And that'll finish off our thing. So we go tab. And we're going to go footer, bottom bar. We can just call that bottom bar because we're in the theme footer, so we don't have to tell it's a footer in that when we're telling people because we already know. All right, and we want, so in the footer we want the copyright. Now remember, we have to use this, has to keep that there. So we're going to go get rid of that. So we go text, copyright, and then we've got this menu. And we want a repeater, menu, footer, bar, menu, and we want a link, item, save. So bottom bar, copyright. That's what we want. And menu item, home. We're going to go, we've got cookies, and then we've got help, and then we've got FQAs, which obviously is FAQs. Whoops. Update. So you see FQAs. So then in our, oh hang on, we've got to go back up to our form. And I want to go, I just want to vart up that again, that form. Just want to see, because I want to do my if statement. So it's an object. So if I go and remove that form, let's just go and check, have I made it that you can empty it? Form. Allow now. So changes, refresh. So now I can clear it. Date. So now if I refresh it, so now we're going to go, so we'll just go if form. And then in here we want to do the heading because we didn't finish all that off. We were so concentrated, I was so concentrated on doing the form that I didn't do all this stuff. PHP if description does not equal null. done. Right, now we are on copyright. Equals get field. Alright, so you want to do the copyright, which is the copyright is just copyright. We don't put the option in there, it looks for it in the page content. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to do, the default is going to be and copy. So that's the copyright icon. Then we're going to go space. Then we're going to go a ref equals, and we're going to go in here, we're going to go equals get site URL, and then we're going to go get blog info name. So we're just setting up the defaults here. So if we look at the default, it's default copyright, anchor, your site name, and all rights reserved. So the anchor is going to have the site URL. The site name is fetching that, and then we're going to have all rights reserved. So even if we have nothing in the copyright, it will always be there. And then we'll just echo that out. And you can see there it tells you that this is free as long as you keep this in the footer link. So we just leave that in there. We don't have to touch that. So if we refresh, it still says your site name, but if we go and edit it to be blank, maybe that's so. If copyright equals null, copyright equals cool. Now we're just going to do the menu. So then we do it here. We go we can get it up here. Menu equals get field, and we call that field footer bar menu, and we want to return that as an array. Right, so we go in here, we want to say PHP if is a menu, PHP and if, and we're going to do the loop here for each menu as menu item, and we're going to close off our loop. And we get rid of all these, that, and we want PHP item equals if not empty menu item, and we get the item, and then we go equals if not empty item URL, same as we did with the quick links menu. Remember, and in there we go title. So if we refresh, this should look exactly the same, except FQA should change to FAQs. Boom, there we go. So there we go. So to quickly cover off, we have set up the header. We've got the dynamic menu, the dynamic logo all working, and we've set up all our footer widgets as theme options, and that's all set up and ready to go. So in the next video, we'll get started on the home page with the hero. See you in the next lesson.